Let's go ahead and dive into our first new feature in GOP24B, and that is the ability to consume resource capacity only after the components become available. With Update 24B, we can set up global order promising so that it starts consuming resources only after our manufacturing organization has all of the components it needs to begin manufacturing. This is beneficial for a couple of reasons. First, it helps us prevent unplanned resource downtime or idle time. And second, it helps us avoid promise dates which may be too early to execute and unrealistic to satisfy on time. To enable this feature, we do it from the Global Order Promising user interface with a task for Manage Order Promising Options. Within that task, there is a new checkbox for Consider Resources After Components Are Available. This is optional and is not required to be enabled. Some things to consider. Order promising still applies the same logic with regard to alternate resources or substitute components. Promising will use the primary, alternate, or even a substitute to make sure it promises the sales order on time or with minimum delay. Also, enabling this feature can slow down the GOP engine. So if you need slightly faster performance and less accurate promising results, then be cautious using this feature. You may want to continue to promise according to the default behavior. And last, maintaining accurate lead times and product information management is critical to achieving desirable results from this feature. Let's take a look at an example for a better understanding of how this feature works. So let's assume that we have a sales order with a requested ship date of April 15th. And this sales order is for a finished good, which uses components called C1 and C2, and manufacturing our finished good requires resources R1 and R2. Here we see our different lead times based on the bill of resources and the quantity required. In our second table, green is our component consumption, and blue is our resource consumption. It's important to note that these available quantities are cumulative when counting in reverse. So for example, a quantity of 20 is available for item C2 on April 3rd because we have 5 available on April 3rd, 5 available on April 2nd, and 10 available on the April 1st bucket. So 5 plus 5 plus 10 equals 20. Here's how order promising determines some of these consumption dates. Because our sales order requested ship date equals April 15th, it sets the manufacturing end date to April 15th because our finished good item does not have any post-processing lead time. So our manufacturing end date can equal our requested ship date. Then it determines the manufacturing start date. Promising starts with April 15th and works backwards to find the earliest manufacturing start date that it can use while still meeting the lead time requirements for the components and resources. In this example, it identifies the component or resource that has the largest lead time. So C2 component has the largest lead time with a value of 12 days. So the global order promising engine then sets the manufacturing start date to be equal to April 3rd, which is April 15th minus the 12-day lead time. Then it makes sure that the components are actually available on April 3rd. Manufacturing requires a quantity of 10 for item C1 and a quantity of 20 for item C2. In this example, a cumulative quantity of 11 is available for C1 on April 3rd, and a quantity of 20 is available for C2. So we're good to go. Then the promising engine makes sure that resources are available from April 3rd through April 15th. Manufacturing requires 50 hours of resource R1 and 20 hours of R2. Resource lead times are 0, and the end date to consume resources is April 15th. R1 has 130 hours available leading up to April 15th, and R2 has 39 hours available. So cumulative resource hours available on April 15th to meet the demand. If the promising engine had found that manufacturing didn't have the quantity it needed for each component and resource, then it would use the next day as manufacturing end date and try again. Thank you. That concludes this lesson. With our new features for global order promising in release 24B, the next feature is the ability to import the types and rates of consumption for our manufacturing components, materials, and their resources. We now have the ability to load the types and rates of consumption-based data import template. Loading these values improves our bill of consequently the accuracy of the ATP dates and quantities provided by GOP. However, this feature is only applicable for those not using Oracle Cloud Manufacturing. So an example of this would be an environment where Oracle Cloud Order Management is used for sales order entry, but the manufacturing execution system. In order to use this feature, we simply need to populate the column in the Supply Chain Planning Bill of Resources FBDI template, and then load and collect the data as normal. We see here from this screenshot that it is possible to have rates for both resources and material components. So we can see examples of where our water filter outlet pipe is defined to be fixed and variable, as well as our R2 resource is fixed and variables. With the basis type defined, we can now populate the usage quantities. Resources will be used in hours, and items will be used in whatever the primary unit of measurement management. Some tips and considerations